Joseph the Dreamer, Genesis 37 to 45. Welcome to Bible Story Time. Today we're diving into one of the most inspiring stories of perseverance, faith, and divine purpose in the Bible, Joseph the Dreamer. From betrayal to forgiveness, Joseph's journey teaches us valuable lessons. Watch till the end to understand how God turned his trials into triumphs and how you can apply these lessons to your life. Joseph's dream and his brother's jealousy. Joseph was the 11th son of Jacob, born to him in his old age, and he was his father's favorite. Jacob showed this by giving Joseph a richly ornamented coat of many colors. His brothers, already envious of Joseph's position as their father's favorite, became even more jealous when Joseph shared two dreams he had. In these dreams, he saw himself ruling over his family with his brothers bowing down to him. At first, his brothers mocked him, but jealousy soon turned to hatred. They could not stand the idea of Joseph, the youngest, one day being greater than them. This jealousy led to a terrible betrayal. The betrayal. One day when Joseph was sent by his father to check on his brothers who were grazing the sheep, they saw him coming in the distance and began to plot his death. Reuben, the oldest brother, tried to intervene, suggesting they throw him into a pit instead, intending to rescue him later. However, when they saw a caravan of Ishmaelite traders passing by, they decided to sell Joseph to them for 20 shekels of silver. Joseph was taken to Egypt, and his brothers dipped his coat in goat's blood and showed it to their father, leading him to believe that Joseph had been killed by a wild animal. Joseph in Potiphar's house. In Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, the captain of Pharaoh's guard. Despite being a slave, Joseph's faith in God never wavered. The Lord was with him, and everything he did prospered. Potiphar quickly noticed Joseph's abilities and made him the overseer of his household. Joseph was trusted with everything Potiphar owned, but even in this high position, Joseph faced challenges. Potiphar's wife attempted to seduce Joseph, but he refused, saying, "How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" Genesis 39:9. In response, she falsely accused him of trying to assault her, leading to Joseph's imprisonment. Joseph in prison. Even in prison, Joseph's faith did not falter. God's presence was with him, and he quickly gained favor with the prison warden. Joseph was put in charge of the other prisoners, and one day two of Pharaoh's officials, the cupbearer and the baker, were thrown into prison. They both had troubling dreams, and Joseph, with God's help, interpreted them. He predicted that the cupbearer would be restored to his position, but the baker would be executed. Joseph asked the cupbearer to remember him when he was restored to Pharaoh's service, but the cupbearer forgot about him for 2 more years. Yet Joseph's trust in God remained unshaken. Joseph's rise to power. 2 years later, Pharaoh had a series of disturbing dreams that no one could interpret. The cupbearer, finally remembering Joseph, told Pharaoh about the Hebrew prisoner who could interpret dreams. Joseph was summoned, and with God's guidance, he interpreted Pharaoh's dreams, predicting 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. Impressed by Joseph's wisdom and insight, Pharaoh appointed him as the second in command over all Egypt, second only to himself. Joseph's rise from a slave to the ruler of Egypt was nothing short of miraculous, and it was all part of God's plan. Joseph's brothers come to Egypt. When the famine struck, it affected not only Egypt, but the surrounding lands, including Canaan. Jacob sent his sons to Egypt to buy grain. When they arrived, they didn't recognize Joseph, but he recognized them. Joseph tested his brothers, accusing them of being spies and requiring them to bring their youngest brother Benjamin to him. Through these trials, Joseph wanted to see if his brothers had changed. He eventually revealed himself to them, saying, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt." Genesis 45:4. At first his brothers were stunned and terrified, but Joseph reassured them, saying, "Do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." Genesis 45:5. Joseph forgives his brothers. Joseph's words reflect the theme of forgiveness and redemption. Despite being wronged by his brothers, Joseph chose to forgive them and acknowledge that what had happened was part of God's greater plan. He told his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Genesis 50:20. The reunion. Joseph invited his father and the entire family to come and live in Egypt, where they would be provided for during the famine. This reunion of the family was a moment of healing and restoration. God had not only preserved Joseph's life, but also used his suffering to save many others, including his own family. Lessons from Joseph's story. Joseph's story is filled with profound lessons that can inspire us today. Trust in God's plan. No matter how difficult life may seem, God is always working behind the scenes for your good. Forgiveness and redemption. Joseph's willingness to forgive his brothers shows us the power of grace. No matter how deep the hurt, forgiveness can bring healing and restoration. Faithfulness in adversity. Joseph remained faithful to God even in the face of great adversity. His faithfulness was rewarded, and he rose to a position of power to fulfill God's plan. God uses our trials for good. The difficult circumstances in Joseph's life were all used by God for a greater purpose, saving lives during the famine. Your trials may also be part of God's greater plan for you and others. Joseph's story reminds us that no matter what happens, God is always working in our lives. If you've been through a difficult season, trust that God has a plan for you. If you were inspired by Joseph's journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Bible Story Time. Stay tuned for the next video in our series as we continue to explore God's incredible stories from the Bible.